I don't know if this will reach TikTok viewers, but I wanted to talk about the moral history of Africa. But in doing that, I must confront the moral history of America. Let's begin with the truth. I know it sounds uncomfortable. Freedom of speech has always been an illusion. And we have seen this just in present day. Although we have the Constitution or whatever, we have less and less of our freedoms. And we act like we can't see that whenever you don't support a particular narrative, okay, then they take it from you. From the ancient empires to modern democracies, those who control the narrative have controlled what can be said. Speak the truth that affirms power and you are praised. And so you look at all of these foolish people out here, and I'm talking about people that look like me and all others. But if you speak the truth that challenges power, you are silenced, punished, or erased. Even today in the so-called free world, freedom of speech is granted until your words shake the very foundation of lies. And we, as citizens, are supposed to be the ones that state what should be said and how we should live. But it's not the case. That's why we must speak, because silence is not safety either. It's complicity. Silence is surrender. Silence is not about who we are, about where we come from, about the greatness of America, Africa, and all. It is to let the illusion of freedom bind us tighter than a chain. Africa is the cradle of humanity, the root of civilization, the foundation of moral order. Long before the world spoke of justice, Africa had ma'at, truth, balance, order, and righteousness. It was a law not written in books per se, but a principle written into the rhythm of life itself, where you didn't even have to worry about locking your doors and doing a lot of the things that we have to do now. And it stretched from the Nile Valley to the Great Lakes, from Nubia to Mali. Africa's civilizations were guided not just by power, but by morality. We built societies where community was sacred, where wealth was measured not by how much you have, but what you gave. We built empires where scholars in Timbuktu studied astronomy and medicine. Ethiopian kings carved churches out of stone. Pyramids rose as eternal symbols of alignment between earth, humanity, and the heavens. But our story has been stolen. We have been told civilization was born out in the Middle East. The middle of what is what Dr. Henry Clark said. Don't we understand? You cannot build a man-made structure and try to part two land masses and think you're going to call it the Middle East. It's still Africa. There's no such thing as the Middle East. It is Africa. You can build man-made canals to separate, but you cannot change the tectonic plates of the earth. This so-called Middle East sits on African rock, not apart from it. Kemet, what was once Egypt, was Africa. Mesopotamia, earliest sparks of civilization, grew from Africa. Our ancestors' genius did not stop at the Nile. It radiated across continents, the world. And yet, the greatest theft was not the land, not bodies, not gold. It was our memory of who we are. They erased Africa's moral history in us and all over and replaced it with the lie that Africa was primitive until others arrived. They divided us not only by borders but by mind. They told us to despise our skin, our hair, our language, our spirit. They made us believe that to be human, we must be less than African. And we can see that today when we have so-called black Indians and other people running around here like collaborators talking about how American they are. What is American? It's one of the youngest, I wouldn't even call it a civilization, the countries that we have. A lady told me she was American. And I started laughing. I wanted to say that, that's where you're from. That's not who you are. But, I didn't have time to waste. But here's the truth. The world is lost because it has forgotten Africa. You look around, knowledge without wisdom, technology without morality, wealth without justice. These are the fruits of a civilization cut off from the balance. The greed of conquest has given birth to destruction. The lust for domination has poisoned the earth. The worship of money has replaced the worship of life. That is why those of us who are wise we have to return, not to the past as a museum piece, but to the eternal principles that made our ancestors strong. And guess what? You are part of the ancestors. To remember that unity is stronger than division, that justice is higher than profit, that truth is more powerful than lies. To return to ourselves is to restore balance, not only in Africa, but for the entire world. Who are we if we do not remember? We are just the things that people tell us we are. And those things have been less than human. If we remain silent while others tell our story, we will never embody the moral greatness of our ancestors. The chains that used to bind us have changed. They've changed form, but the struggle is still the same. The call is still the same. To say yes to the truth, yes to justice, is to say yes to Africa being reborn. See, most people don't want to understand that if everything comes out of Africa and populated the world, then you have to say yes to Africa in order for you to progress. Because that's what civilization was built on. I tell you, in speaking this truth, you have to wonder, why is it that we fall for the lie? Why is it that we always want to be around somebody who hates us, trying to make them love something that actually brought them out of the caves and out of non-existence? And what I mean by that is that they didn't exist as they are today. Phenoadaptation, environmental factors, and a lot of things have caused a lot of people, a lot of Africans to change due to extreme climates and environment. And so those people who have changed want to be unlike Africans. But you can't change the moral fabric and your DNA.